without husbands to provide for them, to take care of them. So they end up having to leave out of the land from where they were living to try to, go find relatives and people that will help, provide for them. So we're going to look at Ruth. We're going to pick up Ruth chapter 2 tonight. Ruth chapter 2 is where we're going to go real quick here in this lesson. Matter of fact, let's go to Ruth chapter 1. Let's go to chapter 1. Matter of fact, because I want to get one verse in there before I go to chapter 2. So Ruth chapter 1 and verse number 21. Somebody can read it for me.
I went away full, but the Lord has brought me home empty. Why call me Naomi when the Lord has caused me to suffer, and the Almighty has sent such tragedy upon me?
Okay. So when you look at Naomi and in this situation, you got to see where she's, I talked about this, we've been talking about it for a minute, about dealing with life. And so sometimes when you're dealing with life, you can go through things that'll cause you to feel empty. Remember we talked about this a couple Wednesdays ago. We were talking about things that you can experience in life, and you walk away, feeling empty. You feel like, just nothing's left, tragedies and different things that come upon you. And Ruth and Naomi find themselves in that kind of situation. You think about your caretaker, your providers is dead. They're not coming back. So back then, the men were the caretakers. They were the providers of the family or the home. And so without a husband, a wife was in trouble. She was left to fend for herself. But I told you also that in Bible times, of the Old Testament times, that, a relative could take on another relative's wife and take care of her and bring her into his household. And so, but you got to understand where Naomi and Ruth is right now. They're fresh. This is fresh. It just happened. And so they're probably feeling lonely. They're probably feeling like, I don't know how we're going to make it. You know how that goes. If you're in that situation and you lose a job and you don't know if you're going to have another job and you don't have a whole lot of money saved up, you probably got enough for a week or two. And then when that next week run out, the first thing you say, man, I don't know what am I going to do? How am I going to make it? How am I going to survive? And then she turns, because back then, remember I told you names meant something. Names. So Naomi's name, what does it mean? It means beautiful grace of God, right? So that's what her names mean. And so that's why she says in chapter 1, verse 21, that, how the Lord has dealt with me a bitter blow. I left here full of life, and God has brought me back with nothing but the clothes on my back. That's all I have. So I left full. I left with a husband, a provider, with a plan. And now God has got in the midst of this and interrupt all that. Right? So she understands, but she don't understand why. Because he says, I left here full of life, and God has brought me back with nothing but the clothes on my back. Why would you want to call me Naomi? Why would you want to call me, what was her name mean again? Beautiful grace of God. Why would you want to call me that when I'm far from looking like that now? Okay? So put yourself in her shoes. She's now moved from comfortable to survival mode. So she's in survival mode now. So she's angry, she's upset, and who wouldn't be? Because you start off life, you got a spouse, you got your family, you are moving forward, you got daughter-in-laws, your children, and all these things are going in the right direction, and all of a sudden somebody dies. Somebody tragically, suddenly dies. Not because they're sick, but now you're left to fend for yourself or to find somebody else to help do this. So now you got to put yourself in her shoes. Now I'm Mara. Call me Mara. My name means bitter now because I'm upset. I'm ticked off about what God has done. He's allowed to happen. Okay? So who told her to change her name? So let's talk about it. Naomi's downward focus on her losses yielded bitterness and a self-imposed name change. So when you think about that, we don't necessarily change our name, but we don't consider ourselves blessed either. Do we? When things like when tragedies or something happens that's was not according to your plan. You felt like God gave you this and you were moving in the right direction, and then something happens. How many times we fall in that place of not feeling like we're blessed at that moment? We feel like, Lord, why am I suffering? So she spoke over her situation, not according to what God saw, but according to what she felt or what she felt like she was seeing or experiencing. Right? Sometimes we do that. But I told you a couple Wednesdays ago, God is 100% committed to you. No matter what happens in your life, he is still 100% committed to you. He's committed to your success. Now, you may not be able to understand it because of where you are and what you're experiencing and what you're dealing with, but God still says, I am still committed to you regardless. And I think sometimes God shows us that we put our faith in certain things when our faith should ultimately always be in God. Yes, God provides the sources or the resources for us to be able to sustain ourselves, but God is the ultimate source. You understand that? Yeah, I trust my husband or my wife to do what they're supposed to do, but my trust, 110%, is in God. Right? So, because people, things, possessions, that stuff come and go. So I think a lot of times God wants to show you that no matter where you are, I am still the source of all of your blessings. Right? So, conversely, the resolve of Ruth, Naomi's Moabite widow daughter-in-law, Ruth, who refused to leave Naomi. She just refused to leave her by herself. She could have went home. She'd have a right to go back to her home, to go back to where she was from. But you know what? You remember the conversation between her and Naomi? She said, your God has become my God. Your people have become my people. We're one. I'm with you. You're more family to me than my own blood family. So she refused to leave her. Doing family enrichment, that's a message right there. Daughter-in-laws and mothers. Woo. That can be a very dangerous topic. But it was something that Ruth saw in Naomi that wanted her to stay with her and be around her and to follow her. She didn't want to leave her alone. Right? So I love this because Naomi's Moabite widow daughter-in-law refused to depart from Naomi, made a way for a breakthrough. And so by her staying with her mother-in-law, you're going to see it's going to put her in a position where not only she's going to be blessed, but her mother-in-law is going to be blessed because of it also. It's just amazing. All right, so we're going to pick this story up in Ruth chapter 2. All right, and we're going to work our way down through here. Matter of fact, I just want to let's get somebody to start reading at verse number 8. I want you to start reading at verse number 8. Because pretty much know the story. So I want to get to like the meat of what I want to talk about. So let's go to Ruth chapter 2, and somebody start reading at verse number 8.
So Boaz said to Ruth, my daughter, listen to me. Don't go and glean in another field, and don't go away from here. Stay here with the women who work for me. Watch the field where the men are harvesting, and follow along after the women. I have told the men not to lay a hand on you, and whenever you are thirsty, go and get a drink from the water jar the men have filled.
All right, hold it right there. Now it's just a whole lot of meat in here, man. I'm telling you, there's so much stuff in here. So when you think about, look what's happening. Go back to what I just said. God is 100% what?
Committed to you.
God is 100% committed to you. No matter what happens in your life, if God is, if you are walking in the favor and the purpose of God, then God is going to provide for you. Hello? It's right there. It's right here in the story. Look what he says. Then Boaz says to Ruth, he says, listen, my daughter, don't go gather grain in another field. He's protecting her. Okay, how do you know that? Don't go gather grain in another field. Watch this, and don't leave this one, but stay here close to my female servants. Stay close to them, right? Now watch what happens. See which field they are harvesting, and then I want you to follow them. Go where they're going. He says, now, all right, here's another way I'm protecting you. I've already told these young men to keep their hands off of you. Don't bother you. Don't touch you. So he's protecting her. So you see all of this. And it's not just, and I want us to see who's the source. Who's the source? God is the source. God is making these necessary. God is looking out for these two ladies. Right? He's setting it up so beautiful. So he says, watch this. When you are thirsty, he said, I want you to go drink from the water pots that these young men have filled. Guys, because you got to think about during their time, during their day back in Old Testament times. A young, single, female having to work in the field with men. You know what they were subject to? So guess what he says? I've commanded these young men, keep your hands off of her. Don't touch her. Follow my female servants and go with them. So they also can teach you the ropes. So you know what to do and what not to do. Right? So now watch what happens in verse number 10. Mm-hmm.
At this, she bowed down with her face to the ground. She asked him, why have I found such favor in your eyes, that you notice me, a foreigner? Boaz replied.
Hold it right there. Look what she does. Now she's trying to figure out, why have I found favor? Why have I found this kind of favor in you? You don't even know me. I'm a foreigner. I'm not even from here. But yet you going out of your way to protect me, to provide for me. Who's the source? I love it because God is so committed that he'll put you in places and cause people to take care of you that you don't even know. You don't even have any associations with them. And they looking out for you because God has placed something on their heart to do it. And she's just in awe. She's willing to bow. Look, she's willing to bow down to the ground and say, oh my God, how have I found this kind of favor in your sight? Now watch what happens. Because you never know who's watching you. You wonder why you finding favor, but you never know who's got their eyes on you. You never know what kind of report is going ahead of you to somebody else. All right, somebody else, give me verse 11. Watch this.
Yes, I know, Boaz replied, but I also know about everything you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband. I have heard about how you left your father and mother in your own land to live here amongst complete strangers. May the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge, reward you fully for what you have done. I hope I continue to please you, sir, she replied. You have comforted me by speaking so kindly to me, even though I am not one of your workers.
Watch this. See there? Look at verse 11. What did Boaz say? He says, I've heard of everything that you have been doing for your mother-in-law. It's been reported to me. See, when you do right, even in the midst of a tragedy, of hard times, you can't get off track of character. How to start operating out of character because you're suffering, because you're going through something. You still got to do the right thing. Because that's what God rewards. Right? So watch what happens. So Boaz answered her, everything that you have done for your mother-in-law since your husband's death has been fully reported to me. I've got a full report of how you stuck with this lady. Watch this. And then he says in his next part, he says how you left your own family. You left your father and your mother in your native land, and how you came to a people that you didn't previously know. So because of that sacrifice, listen to what he says. May what? Who? Verse 12. May the Lord do what? May the Lord repay you for what you've done. May the Lord reward you for what you've done. So Boaz points back to the fact that it's not me. It's the Lord's blessing you. And may God continue to bless you. May the Lord repay you for everything that you've done. Now, because we know the end of the story, we know she's going to get the reward. Right? And so it's just a blessing to be able to see that even when you are down, and even when you're going through a tragedy, even when you're going through something yourself, you got to have the mindset to say, listen, I got to do right by people. I may not have a lot to offer, but I can help. But I can give you words of comfort. I can be an encourager. I can walk with you through some stuff. Right? So then in return, like I said, you never know who's watching you. I preached a sermon. I think I preached it at Jarman's church. Service, talking about service. I hate bad service. You know, when you go places, to a restaurant, you go out to eat, you go to wherever you're trying to go do trade and sell and buy, whatever. It just irks me that when I pull up to a window and somebody got an attitude. You know, I'm like, find you another job. If you're that dissatisfied with where you're working, please find you somewhere if you don't deal with people. Because you're going to have to deal with people. If you're in customer service, you just got to do it. Right? And it just irks. I'm coming in, listen, you got a job because of us. Do you understand that? You are working and you are making a living. You put a roof over your head and food on your table because people like us walking in here paying for our meals or paying for our services, right?
You are overhead. I am profit.
Exactly.
Can be replaced. I can't.
Yeah. You need me. You got to have me in order to be able to do what you need to do to survive. You understand that? So it irks my nerve. It's like it just drives me crazy because then again, even though I may be on a job that's not paying me a lot of money, I don't make a lot, and I got to deal with a lot of crap from people. But at least I have a job. Okay? But at the end of the day, God may have you there for a season. And God may cause the right person to sit at your table at the right time. That could turn your entire world around. But because you got a negative attitude and you hateful and your service is bad, you know, it's like you got to understand that no matter what you're doing in life, God may have somebody's eyes on you for a reason to come back and change your life. She was discovered doing something for somebody else, not for herself. She was blessed because she was serving. She was willing to leave her own family to go with a mother-in-law to a strange land, that people she didn't know, and working in somebody's field she knows nothing about, to help take care of her mother-in-law. And she was discovered doing that. And by that, let me finish the story because it gets better. Come on, let somebody pick up and read. Where were we?
We were at 14.
14. Come on, let's read.
At mealtime, Boaz said to her, "Come over here, have some bread and dip it in the wine vinegar." When she sat down with her harvesters, he offered her some roasted grain. She ate all she wanted and had some left over.
Look at that. Look at that. Come on, read.
As she got up to glean, Boaz gave orders to his men. "Let her gather among the sheaves and don't reprimand her.
Mm.
Even pull out some stalks for her from the bundles and leave them for her to pick up, and don't rebuke her."
Go ahead, keep reading.
So Ruth gleaned in the field until evening. Then she threshed the barley she had gathered.
Mm-hmm.
It amounted to about a peck.
Yours a different epoch, yeah.
She carried it back to town, and her mother-in-law saw how much she had gathered. Ruth also brought out and gave her what she had left over after she had eaten enough.
Look at that. Now hold on right there. Look at God's favor. Boaz steady looking out for her. Right? Giving her more than what she probably could have gleaned or got on her own. Right? And so look at it. So that ephah is 26 quarters of barley. And so when she picked up the grain and went into the town where her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned, she brought out what she had left over. See that? It just reminds me of the law of reciprocity. The more, it's like, what we don't understand is that if you don't give nothing, you don't receive nothing. And so I don't think people don't fully understand that. I think people think that, I got to hoard all this for myself, because if I don't have it, we won't have it. Right? And so, but look what God does. Not only does he bless her with what she needs, but she had leftovers. What did she do with the leftovers? She gave it away. She didn't hoard it. She didn't say, okay, I got more. I can put this in my bag for later. In her mind, she was already thinking about blessing Naomi. I don't think it just happened when she showed up back in town. I purposely think that she put that back so she could bless her mother-in-law. That's a person that does not think about themselves and themselves only. And so when we understand how beautiful it is to be able to give and to share, even in our own poverty. Is that making sense? Even in my own hurt, in my own poverty, I'm willing to bless somebody. That's how the favor of God come on your life, man. And I think a lot of times we make excuses. We make excuses a lot of times by saying, well, I don't have that much myself. How could I be giving something to somebody? What the woman with the one mite? She gave it. She gave her last. The last thing she had, she gave it away. What happened because of it? She continued to walk in the favor of God. So you got to understand that even though I may not have much I can give, I can at least give something. And it doesn't matter whether or not yours match somebody else's. And I think that's what a lot of times we look at, well, they can afford to give more. So, but God don't look at your 10 versus my 100. No, he look at the fact of what's about giving. Where your heart is. It doesn't matter.
Too often I think we fall into this thinking that God has asked me to give, and we try to keep score the way people keep score.
Exactly.
As though God needed all of what we got.
Exactly.
I mean, he's been doing okay for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Way
He'll
before
probably
you
do
got
okay
here.
after we're gone.
Exactly.
So, does he really need? He doesn't need that money. He needs the dedication,
Yes.
the faithfulness, the sacrifice.
Yes. Yes. Now watch this. Let's go to verse 19. 19 and 20. That's where we'll stop at. Go to 19 and 20. Who got it?
Where did you gather all this grain today? Naomi asked. Where did you work? May the Lord bless the one who helped you. So Ruth told her mother-in-law about the man in whose field she had worked. She said, the man I worked with today is named Boaz. May the Lord bless him. Naomi told her daughter-in-law, he is showing his kindness to us as well as to your dead husband. That man is one of our closest relatives and one of our family redeemers.
There it is.
Then Ruth said,
Hold on.
Okay.
There it is. That's it. That is it. Think about this. Look at her breakthrough. All right, specifically Ruth's decision to gather the leftovers, you go back, leftover grain to support herself and them resulted in her arrival where? In Boaz's field. A wealthy relative of Naomi's deceased husband. What did I tell you that the relatives do? That's the family redeemer. So now she's in the field of a rich man. See what I told you? Her life that day changed forever. Not because she did something so wonderful, she just was willing to be kind and generous. Her kindness, her generosity to help her mother-in-law, God 100% committed himself to making sure she was going to be taken care of. See how easy that is? So when you think about the message, Boaz's identification as a close relative with the Redeemer rights led Naomi, watch this in Ruth chapter 2, verse 20, to marvel why God blessed that man. God hasn't quite walked out on us after all. He still loves us in bad times as well as good times. Sometimes you just got to stay the course. You got to stay the course. Even in the bad times, you got to stay faithful. You got to stay committed. You got to stay the course. You got to stick it out. Keep plowing, keep doing the right thing. God sees you. Okay? That's what you got to know. You got to know God sees you even in the midst of your difficult situation. God still sees you. And God still is going to make a way. He still can provide for you. Okay? That's something that we have to know. All right? Watch this. In your present circumstances, what can you be thankful for? See, a lot of times we can't focus on that when the heat's on us. All right? When Huntsville Utilities send that bill and you don't know how you're going to pay it, and somebody walk up to you and ask you, what can you be thankful for? I don't know. I need to pay the utility bill for one thing, I know. This car note due. The insurance is due. I don't know where we're going to get groceries from. What can you be thankful for? In the midst of that present circumstance, what can you still wake up and say, Lord, I thank you for this? See, number two, Naomi realized God still loves us in bad times as well as good. How willing are you to own this realization? How? When we think about it. Because there are going to be times that we fall in situations where we're going to have to realize that God is still with me. I know it may be tough. I know it may be hard. I know it may be difficult right now, but God is still He's still with me. And what can I be thankful for in bad times? I still got my health. I still got my strength. I'm still able to, I still got my family. Right?
Still go down to the refrigerator and pick out what you want to eat.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
That's the difference. It's a game changer. Think about the things that you can be thankful for instead of focusing on the things that you don't have. Like I said, a lot of times when life gets to moving so fast, it's hard for us to see the trees and the mountains. It's hard for us to see the lilies in the field when we're blinded by all the other stuff. Right? You gonna say something, Don?
No, I was just gonna say, have you ever noticed how when they get the new car, oh God, it's good.
Yeah.
Or the big income tax check, oh God, it's good.
Yeah.
But like you say, let something bad happen.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, he's still good.
Yeah.
So I be looking at people, man. It's all about the material thing. Hey, look, you want that vet? I'll buy you that vet. Let me get my mama back out the ground. Put yours in there.
Right.
That vet ain't no important no more.
Right.
I mean, now they love it. You know?
Right. Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
These
right.
kids, they look different. I'm just saying.
They are.
I'm just saying.
They are.
Kids are killing their parents today.
Right. You're
I
right.
can't even talk back to mine. Well, I thought she was wrong or not.
Right. Exactly. You be dead.
You know, brothers, sisters, you know, everybody with me, but I'm just saying.
Exactly.
I just noticed how. You remember, y'all might not know about this. Man, you get a whooping from the neighbor across the street.
Oh yeah.
That door, and you still get when mama get home.
That's right.
And then when your big brother get home,
Yeah.
you know how bad what you do.
Yeah.
I'm just saying how when things go good, and the thing that I'm guilty of this stuff too. A while back, I got some years on me now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I know. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right.
And when I
Right.
say I'm blessed to go down there. If I want to pull some crappie out, I can.
Mhm.
Some chicken, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I be looking at people on TV get a bowl of rice or grain.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Maybe a piece of bread.
Right.
That don't work for me. I'm a country boy.
Right.
Gotta have some meat in my potato. You know what I'm saying? Well, I'm
Right.
just saying, but still, if I was at that point,
Yeah.
today I would be glad for that bowl of grain.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. That's and
In
that's
those days, when
what-
things didn't come through like that.
that's the mindset though. You know, and I think that that's the generational gap we got too, because I think kids come here now, they just think they just entitled to certain things, and it
Microwave, that's
and when it don't work out,
you know?
that's why. And then when it don't go like it's supposed to, woe is me. And then you got the worst life in the world because I can't get a certain brand of shoes, or I can't wear a certain kind of clothes, or whatever the case may be. But if you don't, and I think, because I realized that Ruth followed the example of Naomi. But when you think about Naomi though, it's like when the tragedy happened, where did her faith go?
Out the door.
Because she was the one saying, call me bitter, call me Morrow, because I left here full of life, and now I come back, I ain't got nothing but the clothes on my back. I'm not a beautiful grace of God. I'm not that. I'm far from that, because I've lost some stuff. But here's the thing, and I think the message and the lesson for us is, you will lose stuff. But that does not mean it's the end of the world.
Right.
Okay? Listen, I've lost things and they're hurt. But I can tell you that I've probably gotten it back doubled. But see, the thing of it is, when you lose it, the thing you're focusing on is loss. And so it's like having the mindset of Job: the Lord gives and the Lord takes away. Blessed still be the name of the Lord. You still got to bless his name, even in the midst of your losses. Okay? And I think a lot of times people, we get focused and bogged down. Ooh, we lost that much money. Well, we can get some more. Because I don't think the source is run out. I think we think that God runs out of sources or resources. We think God runs out of resources. Okay, well, man, I lost that $300. That was the last $300 that I ever see. That's the last $300 that they printed. Right? That's it. And there's no more money coming this way. Forget it. It's gone. Like it's the end of the world. But just like you received that, you can receive more. But you got to continue to keep blessing God's name.
And yeah, another thing, like from Ruth's point of view, the lesson would be that if you hold somebody up, you continue supporting them and they're sad, they're down times, then you're going to be blessed in return. I mean, it's going to come back to you if you keep on working to help that person.
Right.
You know, just keep faith yourself.
Right.
Even though somebody around you has lost it.
Right. It's amazing how I look back at that too, as Naomi sowed into Ruth's life. That word and those teachings took root in that girl's life. And when it took root in her life, watch what happens. Something grew up in her now to cause her to encourage the person who encouraged her. See that? See how it works? So when you sow something in somebody else's life, you never know how they're going to turn around and be a blessing back to you. That's why it's important that we try to sow into everybody, bring as many folks to Christ as you possibly can, because you never know when you're going to need them. Okay, scripture demonstration of God's unfailing commitment to you. I got to give these to you, and then we're going to be done. All right, so 2 Timothy 2. Let's look at this one, verse 13. All right, he says, but even if we are faithless, he will still, look at this, be full of faith, for he never wavers in his faithfulness to who? Even, Andrew, if you don't have no faith, God says, I'm still going to be faithful to you. Now, what kind of mess is that? We don't do that. Shoot. Cross me if you want to and see.
You know.
See how long I stick around. Right? Ain't you glad that God ain't like us? Boy, woo, thank God he ain't like us. Woo, thank you, Jesus. Because we'd have been left a long time ago. But Timothy says, even in our unfaithfulness, God is still faithful to us. He's still committed. Deuteronomy 31 verse 8, it says, the Lord himself goes before you and will be with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. God is with you. Even in your mess, God is with you. Even in our foolishness and the things that we do that is not godly, God says he's still with us. Whew. For by the grace given to me, I say to every one of you, do not think of yourself more what? Highly than you ought to, Romans 12. But rather think of yourself with sober judgment in accordance with the faith God has distributed to each of you. So God has distributed faith to each one of us. Listen, don't think you all that in a bag of chips, because you are not. You are a sinner. You will forever, always be that until Jesus comes back. All right, so understand that. So he's saying, listen, you only saved by grace, not by merit, because you can't work your way. They don't work like that. Okay? You only saved by the grace of God. If not by the grace of God, you wouldn't make it. None of us would make it. Okay? So don't think of yourself more than you ought to. You're not all that. Because if God dealt with you according to you, we be gone. Right? So it's by his grace that we are saved. All right? So through all of this, we got to trust God. Right? So Ephesians chapter 6, verse 16 identifies faith as a shield. Right? Capable of extinguishing the flaming arrows of the evil one. He says, be aware your confidence in God is a primary target of the evil one. That's what the devil is after. He's after, look at, he is after your faith in God. That's what he's after. If he can get you to stop believing, if he can get you to stop trusting, then he has you exactly where he wants you. So that's why all these things come upon you. So you got to be aware of that. That's the target. Your confidence in Jesus, your confidence in God is the primary target that the devil is after. So just as an unused or a disabled shield provides ineffective protection, surrendered confidence renders you vulnerable to attack. So if you let your guard down and you stop believing and you stop trusting God, then guess what's going to happen? He's coming even harder. You got to be careful about this. So knowing this, God implores us not to throw away our confidence. Confidence is a function of trust. Love is the perfect soil for growing trust. God is love, and he is so worthy of our trust. He is. He really is. When you think about it, your confidence and your trust should never waver in God. Never. Under no circumstances. Because as soon as you open that, if you got a slither of a crack in your confidence, the devil going to put a wedge in that bad boy. Because he's coming. If he can get his foot in, you might be in trouble. Okay? So be careful about that. Okay? God in his word of what? One. God who cannot lie watches over his word to make it come true. God can't lie to us. So you got to take refuge in God's commitment to you. He is 100% committed to you. Know that. God don't want you to suffer. He wants you to be successful. Watch this. Jeremiah 31:3. I have loved you with an everlasting love. I have drawn you with unfailing kindness. Joshua 1:5, the NIV version says, as I was with Moses, so I'm going to be with who? You. I will never leave you, nor, there it is again, Isaiah 46:4, even to your old age. He said in your gray hairs. How many of you got some of them? He says, I am he who will sustain you. Even in your old age, I have made you and I will carry you. I will sustain you and I will rescue you. I'm like, what else God got to say? What else does he have to do to prove to us that he's committed to our success? He's committed, 100% committed to us making it into heaven. God does not want to see anybody lost. Nobody. That's not his will. Okay? So, as we conclude, when difficult circumstances arise, know they are perfect platforms for demonstration of God's grace and his sovereignty. That's what you got to look for when things like that come up. When difficult things arise in your life, here's a perfect platform for God to demonstrate his grace and sovereignty. How does he do it? By placing you in a field of a rich man. Providing for you and taking care of you. Going ahead of you. Making arrangements. Isaiah 43:2, New Living Translation says, when you go through deep waters, I will be where? With you. When you go through the rivers of difficulty, you will not drown. When you walk through the fire of oppression, you will not be burned up. The flames will not consume you. Deuteronomy 7:9. Understand, therefore, that the Lord your God is indeed God. He is the faithful God who keeps his covenant for 1,000 generations and lavishes his unfailing love on those who love him and obey his commands. God is here. And God is with you every step of the way. So, beloved child of God, I urge you to wholeheartedly trust God. No matter what happens in your life, that's what I want you to do. No matter whatever happens, put your trust in God. Remember these scriptures. You know, hold on to them. Because when things get tough and things get difficult, and I'm not just saying that's the time that we get in the Word, but that is the time that you need to be remembering these things. You need to be repeating them. You need to be saying them. You need to be memorizing. Whatever you got to do, you need to get in here and start just reading this. Because as you do that, it reminds us that God is faithful, that God is committed, and no matter what happens, it's for God. It's for your good. It's going to work in your favor. Hebrews 6:18, so God has given both his promise and his oath. These two things are unchangeable because it's impossible for God to lie. Therefore, we who have fled to him for refuge can have great confidence as we hold to the hope that lies before us. See that? Isaiah 55:11, so is my word that goes out from my mouth. It will not return to me empty, but will accomplish what I desire and achieve the purpose for which I sent it. Every word that God speaks has a purpose behind it. It has a mission. And God is going to make sure that that word is confirmed. No matter what happens. Nothing in this world, no issue, no devil, nobody can stop what God has spoken. Can't do it. So, beloved child of God, here it is. You are united with God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. So who told you that you were empty? You're never empty. Never, ever are you empty. Because God is with you every day.